Have you ever found yourself trapped in a conflict so intense it feels impossible to escape? Maybe it began with something seemingly trivial, a forgotten text message, or who left the dishes in the sink. What was supposed to be a simple conversation spiraled out of control. One careless comment, one tiny misunderstanding, and suddenly you are caught in an argument far bigger than it should be. You try to backtrack and to smooth things over, but it's too late. The conversation turns into a battle of wills, where every word cuts like a fresh wound. Sound familiar? You are not alone. What if I told you that most conflicts don't actually start with the words spoken in that moment? They begin much deeper, at the level of identity. Today we're going to explore the hidden power of identity in conflict resolution. Over many days of research, I've uncovered some of the most powerful insights, and I'm excited to share them with you. By the end of this video, you'll have practical tools that can transform even the most emotionally charged disputes into opportunities for genuine connection. I'll guide you through a simple 4-step method that can help you bridge divides in both your personal and professional relationships. Trust me, these tools can change the way you communicate forever. So stick with me, because this might just change how you see every conflict in your life. At its core, conflict is like a complex drama, full of action, suspense, and emotion. A melodrama where identity is the lead character. If identity lies at the heart of our toughest conflicts, how do we better understand it? How can we regain control, turning emotional chaos into clarity and connection? The key lies in recognizing the hidden forces that shape our reactions: identity, relational space, and the psychological traps that keep us stuck. Let's start with a powerful concept introduced by Daniel Shapiro, Homo identicus. This concept helps us understand that identity is not just about who we are as individuals, but about the space between us and others. This relational space can be either a battlefield or the key to resolution. Imagine a conflict at work. Perhaps a colleague shoots down your idea during a meeting. You leave feeling angry, but it's not just about the idea itself. It feels personal, as though your autonomy and credibility have been challenged. In moments like these, we often assume the problem lies solely with the other person, but it goes much deeper, and it's far more insidious. According to Shapiro, we are navigating the emotional space between ourselves and others, our relational space. This space can be welcoming and safe, or it can become hostile and tense. When it's the latter, even a harmless comment can feel like a threat. Once that space is damaged, conflict becomes almost inevitable. So what exactly is identity? Shapiro explains it has two parts: the I and the me. Think of the me as the story you tell yourself about who you are, your achievements, your beliefs, and how you want others to see you. The I, on the other hand, is the part of you that lives in the present moment, your emotions, instincts, and embodied experiences. It's a dynamic process, like two hands drawing each other, constantly shaping and being shaped by your experiences and relationships. Let's say you're at a family reunion. A relative comments, "You've changed so much since moving to the city." This triggers a reaction inside you. Your me, the story you've built about being independent and successful, feels challenged. The I reacts emotionally, becoming defensive. That comment isn't just about change, it feels like an attack on your identity. Understanding this dual nature of identity is crucial. It allows you to pause and ask yourself, is my reaction really about what was said, or is it about how it touches a deeper part of who I am? Knowing who you are is vital. Our identity isn't random or chaotic. Shapiro outlines 5 core pillars that form the foundation of our identity: beliefs, rituals, allegiances, values, and emotionally meaningful experiences. These pillars are like the foundation of a house. When one is shaken, the entire structure feels unstable. Let's break these down. Beliefs are the core convictions guiding your life, what you see as right or wrong, what matters most to you. They aren't mere opinions. They are deeply entwined with who you are. Imagine you believe that hard work is the key to success. You've lived by this belief your entire life, but then someone dismissively tells you, "You were just lucky you didn't work that hard." It feels like a punch to the gut, not just questioning your effort, but undermining a fundamental part of your identity. Rituals go beyond daily routines. They are meaningful customs that provide structure and comfort. Think of Sunday family dinners, holiday traditions, or that morning coffee shared with a friend. When these rituals are broken or ignored, it feels like a loss of connection and belonging. Suppose you always gather with your family for Sunday dinner, but one week a sibling skips without notice. It seems small, but it stings because that ritual symbolizes your family bond. Allegiances are the deep loyalties you feel toward people, places, or groups, your family, culture, or favorite sports team. When these loyalties are questioned, it feels deeply personal. Imagine being accused by a close friend of not supporting them when they needed you most. It cuts deep because it's not just about the situation. It's about your loyalty being doubted. Values are the ideals you live by, the principles guiding your decisions. They might be integrity, kindness, or freedom. When someone acts against your values, it feels like a personal attack. Imagine valuing honesty above all else, only to find out a colleague lied to you about something important. It's not just a professional issue. It feels like a betrayal of everything you stand for. Finally, emotionally meaningful experiences are the moments that leave a lasting imprint on your identity. Joyful events, like the birth of a child, or painful ones, like losing a loved one. These memories shape how you see the world. Imagine achieving a long-sought goal like graduating or landing your dream job. That memory isn't just a point in time, it's part of your identity. When someone dismisses it, it feels like they're erasing a piece of you. Each of these pillars, beliefs, rituals, allegiances, values, and emotionally meaningful experiences, tells the story of who you are. When conflict threatens any of these pillars, it's no wonder our reactions are intense. But here's the key. Once you recognize which pillar is being challenged, you can step back and respond from a place of clarity rather than defensiveness. This is the first step toward transforming conflict into connection, understanding what's truly at stake. Now that we have laid the groundwork by understanding how identity shapes conflict, let's dive deeper into what happens when conflict spirals out of control. Daniel Shapiro calls this the tribe's effect, a psychological shift that transforms a simple disagreement into a full-blown battle of us versus them. It is no longer just about opinions or facts. It becomes about defending identity, loyalty, and belonging. This mindset can turn even the closest relationships into battlegrounds. When your identity feels threatened, your brain goes into survival mode. The other person stops being just the other with a differing viewpoint. They become the enemy. Suddenly, the situation demands a clear winner and loser. Imagine two departments at work fighting over how to allocate a limited budget. At first, it's a professional debate. Each team presents arguments trying to persuade others. But then something shifts. The debate turns personal. The conversation is no longer about resources. It's about proving who is right and who is wrong. The room divides sharply. One team accuses the other of reckless spending. The other fires back with accusations of neglect and betrayal. This is the identity clash. Each side digs in, defenses rise, and the possibility of collaboration evaporates. This is the tribe's effect in full force, a cognitive trap that convinces you there's no middle ground. It tells you the only way forward is to defeat the other. This mindset is dangerously limiting. It blinds us to possibilities for understanding and connection. Yet the truth is, there is a way out. The first step is to recognize that the us versus them mentality is just a mindset, a trap we can choose to escape. Breaking free requires intentional effort, a jolt back into connection and empathy. It's like Odysseus tying himself to the mast to resist the siren's tempting song. He knew he would be lured and planned ahead. In conflict, we must do the same. We need to consciously break the tribal pattern and recenter on the shared humanity beneath our differences. The tribe's effect is fueled by what Shapiro calls the 5 lures of the tribal mind. These are hidden psychological forces that pull you deeper into conflict without you even realizing it. Understanding these lures is key to breaking their grip. Vertigo. Have you ever been in a fight where time seemed to stretch endlessly? 5 minutes felt like an hour, and all you could focus on was winning? That's vertigo. When conflict becomes so intense it overwhelms your entire attention, you lose perspective. A small disagreement can explode into shouting matches about every unresolved issue in a relationship, leaving the original problem long forgotten. Breaking free from vertigo means stepping back. You expand your perspective and ground yourself in the bigger picture. Remember, despite the conflict, you and the other person are still connected, maybe even deeply in love. Expanding your view can restore that awareness. Repetition. Compulsion. This lure drags you into the endless replay of the same argument or pattern. It's like a loop that you can't escape. Often, these repetitive conflicts are rooted in old wounds that never fully healed. For example, every disagreement with your partner might follow the same script. A minor disagreement escalates into the same accusations and defenses. You know exactly how it will end, but you're powerless to stop it. The key to breaking free from repetition compulsion is to recognize the pattern. Once you can name it, you can rewrite the script and introduce new ways to respond. Taboos. These are the unspoken topics, the off-limits areas everyone avoids discussing, even though they cause tension. In families, money is often a taboo topic. No one talks about finances, but beneath the silence, conflict simmers. One day, the pressure bursts in an explosive argument fueled by years of unspoken resentment. Navigating taboo requires creating a safe space for honest conversation. Breaking down walls and addressing difficult subjects step by step can prevent conflicts from spiraling. The sacred. These are the deeply held principles or boundaries that feel non-negotiable. The sacred isn't always religious. It's anything so important that compromising feels like losing part of yourself. For some, it might be professional integrity. Imagine being asked to falsify data on a report. Refusing isn't just about work ethics. It's about preserving who you are. Negotiating the sacred means acknowledging its importance, for both yourself and the other person. Some things may have no middle ground, but understanding and respecting those limits is crucial. Identity politics. This lure happens when identity is wielded as a tool for influence or power. Sometimes this can be positive, but in conflict, it often escalates tensions. A neighborhood dispute over a new development can morph into a cultural battle over who gets to define the community's future. What started as a zoning issue turns into a fight over identity and belonging. Recognizing when identity is being weaponized allows you to step back and refocus on shared goals and common ground. These 5 lures are powerful. They evolved to protect us, but more often they trap us. The good news? Once you understand them, you can begin to dismantle their hold. Now that we've mapped the hidden forces behind conflict, let's shift to solutions. How do we not just escape conflict, but transform it into something meaningful? The answer lies in a 4-step process Daniel Shapiro calls integrative dynamics. The first step is to witness the emotional weight of the conflict. This means acknowledging the pain, both yours and the other person's, without rushing to defend or fix it. Often, people just want to feel seen and understood. Think back to the last time you felt truly heard, not interrupted or argued with, just listened to. It's a powerful experience because witnessing validates emotions. It says, I'm here, I'm listening. For example, if you've had a long-standing conflict with a sibling about a family decision and every discussion turned into shouting, try pausing and saying, I see how painful this has been for you. I didn't realize how much it hurt. Suddenly the argument softens because it moves from facts to connection. Witnessing is the first brick in rebuilding bridges. The second step is to mourn what's been lost. Every conflict involves some form of loss, trust, opportunity, or something deeper. It's okay to grieve and give yourself permission to feel sadness. Mourning clears emotional debris and makes space for healing. Imagine a friendship that ended after a bitter disagreement. You might avoid each other for years. Mourning is not about fixing the past, but recognizing what was lost. It's about allowing yourself to say, this mattered, and it's okay to feel sad about it. The third step, forgiveness, is among the hardest, but also the most liberating. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or excusing the harm. Instead, it means releasing the emotional grip the conflict holds over you. It's saying, this will no longer control my life. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, independent of whether the other person apologizes or changes. Say a former colleague betrayed your trust, and you've carried resentment for years. One day, you realize holding on to anger only hurts you. Forgiving doesn't mean pretending nothing happened. It means choosing to let go of the burden. The final step is to rebuild, finding common ground, and creating a new narrative for the relationship. This doesn't erase the past, but it builds something stronger from it. For example, after years of estrangement, a father and son might start reconnecting through weekly calls, shared projects, and gradually restored trust. It's not perfect or instant, but it's real. Rebuilding is about creating something new, not erasing what was. Having laid out the first 2 steps of integrative dynamics, witnessing and mourning, it's time to explore the final 2 steps that are crucial for transforming conflict into genuine connection: forgiveness and rebuilding. These steps may be challenging, but they unlock the possibility of healing and renewal, whether in personal relationships, family ties, or professional partnerships. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. It's not about excusing harmful behavior or pretending the pain didn't happen. Instead, forgiveness is an internal process of releasing the emotional hold that conflict has over you. It's a conscious decision to free yourself from the toxic weight of resentment, bitterness, or anger. Imagine a scenario where you were deeply betrayed by a close friend or colleague. You may have carried that hurt for years, replaying the offense in your mind and feeling the sting every time you think of them. Holding on to this pain only drains your emotional energy and impacts your well-being. Forgiveness, in this context, is a radical act of self-care. It does not require reconciliation or the offender's apology. You might never hear an apology, and that's okay. The act of forgiving is for your freedom. It says, I choose peace over bitterness. Research in psychology confirms that forgiveness improves mental health, reduces anxiety, and even lowers physical stress. Forgiveness is transformative because it breaks the cycle of retaliation and allows new possibilities to emerge. Yet forgiveness doesn't erase boundaries or negate justice. You can forgive while maintaining limits to protect yourself from future harm. Forgiveness is not weakness, it's strength and clarity. The final step, rebuilding, is about moving forward with intention. It means finding new ways to relate, grounded in the lessons learned and the respect earned through difficult conversations. Rebuilding is not erasing the past, but integrating it into a stronger, more resilient relationship. Think of a fractured family where distance grew over years of misunderstandings and unspoken grievances. One day, a conscious choice is made to reconnect. It might begin with small gestures, occasional phone calls, shared meals, or mutual projects. Trust is rebuilt slowly, step by step, brick by brick. Rebuilding requires patience and vulnerability from all involved. It means acknowledging the hurt, celebrating small victories, and accepting imperfection. The goal isn't a perfect relationship, but a functional, caring one. In professional settings, rebuilding might look like renegotiating terms, clarifying expectations, or simply opening channels for honest dialogue. Even competitive work environments benefit when parties commit to mutual respect, despite differing views. Now, how do you implement this 4-step integrative dynamics method in everyday life? Here are some practical tips. Pause and listen. When conflict arises, resist the urge to respond immediately. Take a deep breath and listen, not just to words, but to underlying feelings and needs. This creates space for witnessing. Acknowledge pain. Even if you don't agree with the other person's perspective, validate their feelings. Say something like, I can see this hurts you, or I understand why you feel that way. This step reduces defensiveness. Allow yourself to grieve. Give yourself permission to feel sadness, disappointment, or loss. Journaling, meditation, or talking with a trusted friend can help process these emotions. Mourning is essential for moving forward. Practice forgiveness. Remind yourself that holding grudges only weighs you down. Visualize releasing the burden or write a letter, even if you don't send it, expressing your choice to forgive. Rebuild slowly. Start with small steps toward connection. Set realistic expectations. Celebrate progress, not perfection. Of course, conflicts can sometimes feel overwhelming or too entrenched to resolve alone. Seeking help from a therapist or mediator can provide valuable guidance and tools to navigate complex emotions and histories. Importantly, these strategies foster not only healing but growth. Conflict, when managed well, becomes a catalyst for deeper understanding, stronger bonds, and greater self-awareness. This process also requires us to be compassionate toward ourselves. Many people struggle with guilt, shame, or fear around conflict. Remember, conflict is a natural part of human relationships. It doesn't mean failure. Rather, it's an opportunity to learn and evolve. Finally, understanding these psychological mechanisms, the dual nature of identity, the tribes effect, the 5 lures, and the integrative dynamics, helps us become more mindful communicators. When we recognize what's really at stake in a disagreement, we can respond with empathy instead of aggression, clarity instead of confusion. As you practice these tools, you might find that conflicts which once seemed impossible to resolve become moments of profound connection and growth. Summary of key points from this section. Forgiveness is an internal choice freeing you from emotional bondage, not excusing harm. Rebuilding is a gradual process that creates new relationship narratives, not erasing history. Practical tips include pausing, listening deeply, validating feelings, allowing grief, forgiving, and small rebuilding steps. Professional help can support when conflict feels unmanageable. Conflict is a natural and potentially transformative part of relationships. Greater self-awareness and mindfulness empower healthier communication. As we approach the culmination of this journey through the tangled web of conflict and identity, it is crucial to recognize that conflict, while often perceived as a source of pain and division, also carries the seeds of profound growth and transformation. The emotional upheavals and interpersonal struggles we experience are not random misfortunes, but rather invitations to engage more deeply with ourselves and others, to learn, to heal, and to rebuild. Conflict, when examined closely, reveals itself as a mirror reflecting our core identities, the beliefs, values, and experiences that define who we are. At its essence, conflict shakes these foundational pillars, threatening to fracture our sense of self. Yet this threat, paradoxically, is what opens a doorway toward greater self-awareness and relational maturity. The paradox of conflict and identity. When a pillar of identity, be it a cherished belief, a comforting ritual, a deeply held allegiance, a core value, or a meaningful life experience, is challenged, the initial instinct is often one of defense. We may feel attacked, misunderstood, or diminished. This reaction is primal and understandable. It springs from a need to protect the fragile structure of the self from crumbling under pressure. However, by shifting our perspective to see conflict not as a battle to be won, but as a complex interaction of vulnerable human parts striving for acknowledgement and understanding, we can begin to transform it into a process of mutual growth. This shift from opposition to collaboration is not effortless. It demands courage, patience, and humility, but it is profoundly rewarding. Overcoming the tribal mindset. One of the greatest obstacles to resolving conflict is the tribal mindset, described by psychologist Daniel Shapiro. This mindset frames conflicts as zero-sum contests where one party must defeat the other. When caught in this mode, individuals see the other not as a person with legitimate needs, but as an adversary to be overcome. This us versus them thinking narrows our focus, hardens our emotions, and escalates tensions. Minor disagreements morph into identity clashes. Small grievances become declarations of war. The conflict no longer revolves around the issue, but around proving who is right and who is wrong. Imagine 2 departments in a company arguing over budget allocation. Initially, they debate strategies and needs, but soon the discussion devolves into personal accusations and entrenched positions. Each side claims moral superiority and dismisses the other's perspective. The room splits into camps, and cooperation fades. Breaking free from this tribal trap begins with a recognition that this mindset is a mental habit, not an immutable reality. By consciously stepping out of the binary win-lose framework and fostering empathy for the other's viewpoint, we open the door to dialogue and shared problem-solving. The role of vulnerability. At the heart of overcoming conflict lies vulnerability, the willingness to show one's true self, including fears, regrets, and hopes. Vulnerability is the bridge between isolation and connection. When one party dares to be vulnerable, it often softens defenses and invites reciprocal openness. Consider a sibling conflict that has simmered for years. During a heated exchange, one sibling pauses and says, "I didn't realize how much this hurt you." This moment of witnessing, truly seeing the other's pain, can shift the entire dynamic. The conversation moves from confrontation to connection. It signals a readiness to listen and understand rather than blame. Despite its power, vulnerability is often avoided because it feels risky. It requires emotional safety, a context where people feel heard without judgment or retaliation. Cultivating such safety is a foundational step toward healing. Navigating the 5 pillars of identity. To respond effectively to conflict, it is essential to identify which pillar of identity is being threatened. Daniel Shapiro outlines 5 core pillars: beliefs. These are deeply held convictions about the world, morality, success, and meaning. When challenged, it feels like an existential threat. Rituals. Meaningful routines that provide structure and comfort, such as family dinners or cultural traditions. Disruptions to rituals evoke feelings of loss and alienation. Allegiances, loyalties to people, communities, or causes. Questioning these loyalties can undermine a person's sense of belonging. Values. Guiding principles like honesty, integrity, or kindness. Violations of values feel like betrayals of the self. Emotionally meaningful experiences, significant life events, joyful or painful, that shape identity. Denial or dismissal of these experiences erases parts of our personal narrative. By pinpointing the pillar under threat, we gain insight into the emotional intensity behind a conflict. For example, a critique of one's work ethic may feel like an attack on deeply held beliefs about self-worth and diligence. Missing a family ritual can trigger feelings of abandonment and loss. Self-compassion and conflict. Conflict often provokes harsh self-judgment. We blame ourselves for causing pain or failing to resolve disputes. This inner criticism only intensifies suffering and obstructs resolution. Developing self-compassion, the practice of treating oneself with kindness and understanding, is crucial. When we acknowledge our imperfections and emotional struggles without condemnation, we foster resilience. Self-compassion creates a fertile ground for empathy, both inward and outward, mindfulness and emotional regulation. Mindfulness techniques help us observe our emotional responses without being overwhelmed by them. By cultivating present moment awareness, we can notice rising anger or anxiety and choose how to respond rather than react impulsively. This practice also enables us to hold space for the other's emotions, fostering a more constructive dialogue. Establishing healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries are vital in conflict. They clarify what is acceptable behavior and protect our emotional well-being. Boundaries are not walls, but guardrails that maintain respect and safety. The power of forgiveness in conflict resolution. Forgiveness is often misunderstood as excusing wrongdoing or forgetting the pain caused. In reality, forgiveness is a profound act of releasing the emotional burden tied to conflict. It is a gift we give ourselves to reclaim peace and freedom. Forgiveness does not require the other party's apology or change. It is an internal process that allows us to step out of the cycle of resentment and retaliation. Holding on to anger and bitterness harms us more than anyone else. Consider someone betrayed by a close friend or colleague. Years of holding a grudge can manifest as anxiety, bitterness, and mistrust. The moment we choose forgiveness, we do not condone the betrayal, but release its grip on our emotional health. Forgiveness opens space for healing and new possibilities. It does not mean forgetting the lessons learned or the need for accountability, but means no longer allowing the pain to define our present. Rebuilding relationships, from ruin to renewal. After mourning loss and extending forgiveness, the path forward involves rebuilding. This process is not about erasing the past or pretending everything is perfect. Instead, it involves crafting a new shared narrative based on honesty, respect, and mutual growth. Rebuilding relationships requires time, patience, and small, consistent steps. For example, a father and son estranged after years of misunderstanding might begin by exchanging brief messages, gradually progressing to phone calls, shared activities, and eventually deeper conversations. Trust is rebuilt not in grand gestures, but in everyday acts of reliability and care. Rebuilding demands vulnerability and courage from all involved and a commitment to moving forward despite imperfections. Communication as a bridge central to rebuilding is effective communication. Listening deeply without interrupting, expressing feelings without blame, and asking open questions create an environment where healing can flourish. Using I statements rather than you accusations reduces defensiveness and keeps the conversation focused on personal experience rather than judgment. Example, saying I feel hurt when plans change suddenly because it makes me feel unimportant rather than you always cancel on me invites understanding rather than conflict escalation. Transforming conflict into connection. When approached with intention and openness, conflict becomes an opportunity to deepen intimacy and trust. By engaging with the emotional undercurrents and identity challenges, partners and colleagues can discover new layers of empathy and collaboration. The painful process of navigating conflict can lead to greater self-awareness, understanding personal triggers and identity needs, enhanced empathy, seeing the other's vulnerabilities and perspectives, stronger bonds, building trust through honesty and repair, the role of boundaries in healthy relationships. While connection is vital, maintaining clear boundaries protects emotional safety. Boundaries help define what behaviors are acceptable and foster respect. Boundaries can be physical, emotional, or digital. For example, agreeing not to raise voices during disagreements or setting limits on communication frequency after conflict preserves dignity and space. Boundaries are not barriers, but frameworks that support sustainable relationships. Cultivating compassionate conflict practices. Finally, nurturing compassionate conflict practices transforms how we relate to difficult moments. This involves pausing before reacting to assess feelings and thoughts, approaching others with curiosity rather than judgment, recognizing shared humanity even amid disagreement. These practices encourage growth beyond the immediate